In the heart of Africa, nestled between rolling green hills and tall palm trees, there was a peaceful village named Tembo Village. The people of Tembo lived close to the earth. They farmed, fished, and told stories under the stars. It was a place where the sound of drums danced in the air and children ran barefoot with laughter trailing behind them. In this village lived a young woman named Zula. She was not loud or flashy like some of the other girls. Zula was quiet, gentle, and known for her kind heart. She spent her days weaving colorful mats and baskets, selling them in the market. Her work was beautiful, and people from nearby villages would come just to buy her crafts. Though many admired Zula's talent, it was her spirit that truly shined. She helped the elders fetch water, cared for sick neighbors, and always had a warm smile. Yet, Zula's life was not easy. Her parents had passed away when she was young, and she had been raised by her aunt, a woman who was kind but very old. Despite this, Zula never complained. She believed that life, like a river, flows better with patience. In a different village not too far away, called Candy Village, lived a man named Jabari. He was strong, tall, and brave, known for helping others without expecting anything in return. Jabari worked as a builder, crafting houses from wood and clay. He was respected by all, but most of all by his mother, Maisha. Maisha was a widow, and Jabari was her only son. She loved him deeply but also feared losing him to another woman. In her eyes, no one could take care of Jabari the way she did. Her love was strong, but it was also possessive. She had already scared off 2 young women who had tried to court Jabari, saying they were not good enough for him. Jabari, however, wanted to find someone kind, someone with a gentle soul. He often said, "A strong home is not built with hands alone, but with love and respect." He believed love should not come with fear. One sunny morning, Jabari heard about the Festival of Winds being held in Tembo Village. It was a yearly celebration with food, music, and crafts from all around. Jabari decided to visit, both to enjoy the festival and perhaps find something special for his mother. When Jabari arrived, the village was alive with colors. Drums played, children sang, and the smell of roasted maize filled the air. As he walked through the busy market, his eyes fell on Zula, sitting quietly at her stall, weaving a mat with bright red and yellow threads. Her fingers moved with grace, and her face was calm, like the surface of a peaceful river. Jabari watched her for a moment, drawn by something he could not explain. Then, gathering courage, he walked up to her. "Excuse me, sister," he said, "these mats are the most beautiful I've seen. Did you make them?" Zula looked up, her eyes soft like morning dew. "Yes, I did. Thank you, kind sir." Jabari smiled. "May I buy one for my mother? She loves things made with care." Zula nodded and handed him a mat. "This one is for mothers. It brings peace to the home." Jabari laughed. "Then it is perfect. May I ask your name?" "I am Zula," she said. "I am Jabari." Over the next few hours, Jabari stayed near Zula's stall, talking, laughing, and helping her carry baskets. They spoke about village life, about dreams, and about the stories they had heard as children. Zula enjoyed his company. Jabari was not like others. He listened, he laughed with respect, and his eyes were kind. When the sun began to set, Jabari knew he didn't want to leave. "Zula," he said, "may I return tomorrow to speak with you again?" Zula smiled. "Yes, Jabari. I would like that." And so he did. The next day, and the day after. For 2 weeks, Jabari walked to Tembo Village just to see Zula. The villagers began to notice, whispering, "The builder from Kendi has found his heart in Tembo." Soon, Jabari knew he had found something rare. He had found love. One evening, under a sky full of stars, Jabari held Zula's hands. "Zula, you are like the first rain after a long dry season. I wish to walk beside you for the rest of my days. Will you be my wife? Zula's heart leapt. Yes, Jabari. I will. Their union was simple but joyful. The whole village celebrated, dancing under lanterns that hung like stars. Zula's aunt, with tears in her eyes, blessed them. Zula, may your kindness be your strength, and may love be your guide. After the wedding, Zula left Tembo village and moved to Kendi village to live with Jabari and his mother, Maisha. Zula was nervous but hopeful. She wanted to be a good daughter-in-law and dreamed of building a peaceful home. When they arrived, Maisha stood at the doorway, dressed in a long robe, her face stern. She looked Zula up and down, her eyes cold. So, this is your wife? She asked Jabari. Yes, mother. This is Zula. Maisha forced a small smile. Welcome. Come in. Inside, the house was quiet. Maisha watched Zula carefully as she unpacked her things. That night, as they ate together, Maisha spoke little. Zula tried to be cheerful, praising the food, thanking Maisha for her welcome, but Maisha only nodded. In her heart, Maisha was burning. She thought, this girl has taken my son. He listens to her now. He smiles at her in ways he never did with me. Her jealousy, hidden behind polite words, began to grow like a thorny weed dot in the days that followed. Maisha gave Zula many tasks, fetching water, grinding maize, cooking all the meals. Zula worked hard, never complaining. She believed kindness would win her mother-in-law's heart. But Maisha was not satisfied. She would say, this food is too bland, or why are you so slow, Zula? Jabari noticed but thought, mother is old. Maybe she is just adjusting. Zula stayed silent. She loved Jabari and didn't want to bring trouble into their home. At night, Zula prayed, let peace fill this house. Let love heal Maisha's heart. The sun rose each morning over Kendi village, spreading golden light over the rooftops and waking the roosters. Life moved slowly, but not peacefully in Jabari's house. While Zula worked hard to make her new home warm and loving, something dark was growing in the heart of her mother-in-law, Maisha. At first, Zula didn't notice. She believed that respect and kindness could soften any heart, even one as cold as Maisha's. Zula would rise before dawn to sweep the compound, cook breakfast, and wash clothes. She prepared Maisha's favorite meals, even learning how to grind spices just the way Maisha liked. Every evening, she massaged Maisha's tired legs and sang songs from her village, hoping to bring smiles to the home. But Maisha's smiles were few. Her words were like sharp thorns, always finding something wrong. You missed a spot, she'd say. This soup is too thin. Can't you do anything right? Zula stayed quiet. She bowed her head and continued her work, believing that patience was the answer. The neighbors noticed the tension. Old women at the well would whisper, that poor girl. Maisha treats her like a servant. Children giggled behind fences, calling Maisha the stone-hearted one. Jabari was often away building houses. He saw Zula's tired face when he returned, but Maisha always spoke first. She is lazy, Maisha would say. I must push her, or she will never be a good wife. Jabari, caught between love for his mother and trust in his wife, didn't know what to believe. Zula, he'd ask gently, is everything all right at home? Zula smiled, her eyes hiding the truth. Yes, my love. All is well. One morning, as the rain softly tapped on the thatched roof, Zula felt a change inside her. Her body was tired, but in a different way. Her heart beat faster, and her mind was full of dreams. She went to see the village healer, Mama Nia, who smiled as she touched Zula's belly. You carry a blessing, my child. A new life grows inside you. Zula's heart swelled with joy. She couldn't wait to tell Jabari. She imagined his face lighting up, his arms around her, laughter filling the air. But she decided to keep the secret for a few days, to prepare a special surprise. Maisha, however, had sharp eyes and sharp ears. That evening, as Zula hummed to herself, Maisha watched her closely. "You look different," Maisha said, squinting. "You've been hiding something." Zula smiled. "Nothing, Mama. I am just happy." Maisha didn't believe her. She waited until Zula left the room, then followed her quietly. She saw Zula holding her belly, whispering prayers of thanks. Rage burned inside Maisha's chest. A child. Now she will have Jabari's heart completely. He will forget me. That night, Maisha could not sleep. She stared at the roof, her mind turning like a pot on fire. I must stop this. I cannot let her steal him from me. I cannot let this child be born. She remembered an old healer named Kali, who lived far in the forest. Kali was known for her dark magic. Her herbs could heal or harm, her charms could bring love or madness. Before the sun rose, Maisha slipped away, walking into the woods with a basket of coins. Kali's hut was hidden between twisted trees, with smoke rising from its roof. Owls watched from above as Maisha stepped inside. Kali smiled, her teeth yellow like old bones. "Maisha, what brings you to me?" Maisha's voice was low, shaking. "I need something to weaken the mind. To bring confusion and fear." Kali's eyes gleamed. "For a foe?" Maisha nodded. "For my daughter-in-law. She carries a child. I want her gone." Kali mixed herbs, roots, and powders, placing them in a pouch. "Mix this in her food. Slowly, she will lose her mind. She will fear shadows, forget herself." Maisha paid her and left, her heart full of bitterness, her hands trembling with the power of her evil plan. Back home, Zula greeted Maisha with a bowl of warm porridge. Maisha smiled, a rare, false smile, and stirred a pinch of the powder into the bowl when Zula wasn't looking. "Eat, my child," Maisha said sweetly. "You must stay strong." Zula ate, smiling. But within hours, her head ached, and her thoughts felt heavy. For days, Maisha continued. Little by little, she added the herbs to Zula's food. Soon, Zula began forgetting things, feeling dizzy, hearing whispers that weren't there. One evening, she dropped a pot and sat on the floor, shaking. "What's happening to me?" she whispered. Maisha pretended to worry. "You are tired. Rest more." Jabari returned from work, noticing Zula's pale face. "Zula, are you sick?" Maisha stepped in. "She's been unwell. I'm caring for her." Zula tried to speak, but her words tangled. Jabari sat by her side, holding her hand. "You'll be okay, my love. We will find help." Maisha watched, silent but pleased. Her plan was working. But in Zula's heart, a small flame still burned, a flame of truth and strength. She did not know how, but she believed she would find the cause of her suffering. And somewhere in the woods, Mama near the healer had a dream of Zula, surrounded by darkness. Zula's days had become clouded. Her body felt heavy, her thoughts like scattered leaves in the wind. She no longer laughed as she used to. Her hands, once quick and steady, now trembled. She would forget simple things, where she placed the water pot, how much salt she added to the soup, or even Jabari's own words from moments before. The villagers began to whisper. "Zula is not well," they said. "The bright girl from Tembo has lost her glow." Maisha, sitting proudly in her courtyard, would sigh and say, "It's sad, truly. The poor child is losing her mind. I do all I can for her." But behind those sorrowful words, Maisha's heart danced with secret joy. Each time she watched Zula stumble or stare blankly into the sky, she felt power return to her hands. The herbs were working. Slowly, Zula was becoming what Maisha wanted, broken, confused, and forgotten. Zula sat outside one evening, staring at the sky. The stars above were blurry, her mind fogged. She could feel something was wrong, deep inside her. Her body didn't feel sick, but her heart did. Her mind did. She began to hear things, small whispers at night, like leaves rustling without wind. Shadows seemed to move in corners. Fear crept into her soul like cold water. One night, as she lay in bed, her breath quickened. She heard someone calling her name, not Jebori, not Maisha, but a strange, cold voice. She sat up, gasping, and ran outside into the darkness. Maisha followed her quietly and smiled as Zula sat on the ground, crying into her hands. "It's working," Maisha whispered to herself. "She is slipping away." Jabari began noticing the change more and more. "Zula, you forgot to cook today. Are you all right?" She nodded, tears in her eyes. I'm just tired." When she tried to explain the whispers and the shadows, Jabari held her gently. "You need rest, Zula. I will take you to the healer tomorrow." Maisha stepped in quickly. No. I am taking care of her, my son. The healers will only spread fear. Let us not shame our family before the village." Jabari hesitated. He trusted his mother, but his heart was troubled. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't understand what point. One afternoon, as Zula sat by the river trying to clear her mind, she saw a familiar figure, Mama Nia, the healer from Tembo village. Her eyes were sharp, her steps light like a cat's. She sat beside Zula and touched her hand. "My child, I had a dream about you. The river showed me a shadow over your heart." Zula burst into tears. "Mama Nia, I am not myself. My mind, it plays tricks on me. I fear I'm going mad." Mama Nia looked deep into Zula's eyes. "No, Zula. You are not mad. Someone has placed darkness upon you. Tell me, who prepares your food?" Zula's heart dropped. "Maisha, always Maisha." Mama Nia nodded. "You must stop eating from her hands. Someone is poisoning your spirit." Zula gasped, "But she is my mother-in-law. Why would she?" Mama Nia squeezed her hand. "The heart that fears losing power can do terrible things. Come, I will help you." Mama Nia gave Zula a small bottle filled with bitter herbs and a pouch of cleansing powder. "Drink this at dawn and dusk. It will drive out the poison. And do not eat or drink anything Maisha gives you. Say you are fasting for strength. Let her not know you are healing." Zula returned home with new strength in her heart. She smiled at Maisha and said, "I am fasting for the next 7 days. I seek guidance and peace." Maisha frowned but nodded. "As you wish." But inside, she was troubled. Why is she smiling again? Has she found help? Maisha thought. Zula pretended to grow weaker, stumbling, coughing, even forgetting her name in front of Maisha. But at night, she drank the herbs and prayed. Slowly, her mind became clearer, her body stronger. The whispers faded, and the shadows stilled. One night, she spied Maisha sneaking into the storage room. Quiet as a cat, Zula followed and saw Maisha opening a small clay pot, mixing something into a basket of millet. Her heart raced. This was the proof. Her fear turned into anger, but she stayed calm. Zula knew the time had come. She would gather the truth, the healer, and the village elders. Maisha's plan was about to unravel. Zula moved quietly through the days, her heart carrying two things, fear and hope. Fear of Maisha's next move, and hope that truth would soon rise like the sun after a long night. Though her body still felt weak, her mind was sharp again. Mama Nia's healing herbs had cleansed the poison from her veins. The whispers and shadows were gone, replaced by a burning desire for justice, not just for herself, but for every woman who had suffered in silence. Zula pretended to be weak, to forget, to stumble. Maisha watched her closely, thinking the poison was still working. She is mine now, Maisha whispered to herself. She will fall soon. But Zula had learned to watch in silence. She noticed how Maisha always stirred her food alone, how Maisha would not eat the meals she gave Zula, and how her eyes darted nervously when Jabari was near. One evening, as Zula swept the courtyard, she noticed a small leather pouch tucked under a stone near the cooking area. Curious, she waited until Maisha left and carefully opened it. Inside, she found dark herbs and powders, with a smell so bitter it made her eyes water. Her hands trembled. This was it, the poison. The proof. Zula knew she couldn't fight Maisha alone. She needed help. Real help. And there was only one person who had the power and wisdom to guide her again, Mama Nia. At dawn, while the village was still asleep, Zula wrapped herself in a shawl and slipped out. She walked quietly past the huts, past the river, and into the forest. The path was long, but her feet moved with purpose. Birds sang softly, and the wind carried the smell of earth and leaves. As the sun rose, Zula reached Mama Nia's hut, nestled under a giant baobab tree. Mama Nia was already awake, grinding herbs in a bowl. She looked up and smiled gently. I knew you would come, child. Zula knelt before her, tears filling her eyes. Mama, I have found the poison. Maisha hides it and mixes it in my food. What do I do now? Mama Nia stood and placed her hand on Zula's head. You have been strong, my child. Now it is time for the truth to walk in the light. But we must be careful, truth must rise with wisdom. Mama Nia gave Zula a small clay pot of cleansing powder and said, sprinkle this in her food once. It will not harm her, but it will make her dizzy for a short time. During that time, she will not think clearly, and her lies will slip. Zula nodded. And then, call the elders, Mama Nia said. Bring them to your home with witnesses. Let Maisha speak in their presence. Her guilt will rise like smoke. Zula's heart beat fast. She feared what might come, but her spirit stood tall. She was no longer a frightened girl. She was a woman standing for truth. That night, Zula returned home with a calm smile. Mama, she said, you work so hard. Let me cook for you tonight. Maisha, surprised, nodded slowly. Very well. Zula cooked millet and stew with care, sprinkling the powder Mama Nia had given her into Maisha's bowl. As they ate, Maisha smiled. Perhaps you are learning, after all. Within moments, Maisha's hands began to shake slightly, her eyes blinking fast. I feel light, she said, sitting back. What did you do? Zula spoke softly, Mama, rest. Tomorrow, we have visitors. At sunrise, Zula called the village elders, including Elder Sefiu, a man of great wisdom, and Mama Nia, who stood beside her like a pillar of strength. Curious villagers followed, sensing something important. Jabari, confused and concerned, stood at the door. Zula, what is this? Zula looked at him with calm eyes. The truth, my husband. I need you to listen. The elders gathered in the courtyard. Zula stepped forward and held up the leather pouch. This was hidden near the cooking place. These herbs were given to me by Maisha, secretly, to make me lose my mind. Gasps filled the air. Jabari's eyes widened. Mother. Is this true? Maisha, still weak from the powder, stood. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Her face twisted with confusion. She tried to speak, but her thoughts tangled. Mama Nia stepped forward and showed the pouch to the elders. These herbs bring madness. She has used them before. Elder Sephew spoke sternly. Maisha, do you deny this? Maisha shook, her eyes darting. I only wanted to protect Jabari. She was taking him away from me. Zula's voice was strong. Love is not chains, Maisha. You tried to break me. But I stand here still, not with hate, but with truth. The villagers murmured, anger and sorrow mixing. Jabari looked at his mother, tears in his eyes. Why, mother? Why harm the woman I love? Maisha dropped to her knees, her voice a whisper. I was afraid of being alone. The morning sun burned bright over Kendi village, but the air felt heavy, as if the earth itself held its breath. People gathered under the tall baobab tree, whispering and waiting. Word had spread like wildfire. Maisha's dark secret was exposed. Zula stood tall among them, her heart pounding like a drum, but her face calm like still water. Beside her stood Mama Nia and the village elders, and in front of her knelt Maisha, shaken and silent, her pride crumbling. Jabari stood between them, torn like a tree in a storm, between the mother who raised him and the wife who had been nearly destroyed. Elder Sephew, wise and respected, stepped forward. His voice was deep and clear. Maisha, daughter of this village, you stand accused of poisoning your daughter-in-law, of attempting to drive her to madness. Do you deny this? Maisha lifted her eyes slowly, her voice barely a whisper. I did not want to lose my son. I feared she would take him from me. I lost my way. The crowd gasped. Some shook their heads in sorrow, others in anger. Truth had finally stepped out from the shadows. Jabari stepped forward. His eyes were filled with tears, his voice shaking. Mother, I loved and trusted you. You could have spoken to me. Why use poison? Why bring harm to Zula, who only wanted to care for you? Maisha reached out, but Jabari stepped back. You let fear turn your love into something cruel. Zula watched silently, her hands folded. Her heart was heavy, not with hate, but with sorrow for what could have been. Elder Sephew raised his hand for silence. We cannot undo what has been done, but we must restore balance. He turned to Maisha. You will leave Kendi village for 1 year. You will live in Bara village, among the elders, and reflect on your deeds. There you will serve the sick and the poor, and learn humility. Only then may you return, with the blessings of both the ancestors and those you harmed. The crowd murmured in agreement. Some nodded with satisfaction, others with pity. Justice had been spoken, not with anger, but with wisdom. Maisha bowed her head. I accept. That evening, Jabari helped Maisha pack her things. The house was silent, heavy with unspoken words. Maisha paused at the doorway, looking at Zula. I do not ask for forgiveness, but I hope, one day, you will find it in your heart. Zula nodded gently. I pray you find peace. As Maisha walked away, her back bent under the weight of her own choices. Jabari stood by the gate, watching her disappear into the distance. Tears rolled down his face. Zula walked beside him, silently offering her hand. Jabari took it. They stood together as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and sorrow. In the days that followed, peace returned slowly. Zula's health grew stronger, her laughter returning like rain after drought. She tended the garden, sang while cooking, and walked freely in the village again. People smiled at her with respect and kindness. Jabari worked hard, his love for Zula now deeper, shaped by the storm they had survived. At night, they sat under the stars, telling stories, dreaming of a future brighter than the past. One morning, Zula felt a soft flutter in her belly. The child she carried was strong, a sign of hope and new beginnings. Mama Nia visited often, guiding Zula through her pregnancy. "Your child will be born with a strong spirit," she said. "For you have shown courage, and love has guided your path." The village celebrated the news. Drums beat, fires burned bright, and Zula danced with joy in her heart. The same woman who had once been nearly broken now stood as a pillar of strength, respected by all. Months passed in Kendi village, and the air that once held whispers of sorrow was now filled with laughter and song. The trees bloomed, the river flowed peacefully, and Zula's belly grew round with new life. Her steps were slow but sure, her smile wide and genuine. The village women gathered around her daily, singing songs of motherhood, helping her prepare for the coming of the child. In the quiet of her heart, Zula often thought of Maishat, the mother-in-law who had tried to break her. She did not hate her. Zula had seen what fear and jealousy could do to a person. Still, she wondered, had Maisha truly changed? Or was her heart still wrapped in bitterness? One breezy afternoon, as Zula sat weaving a small blanket for the baby, Jabari approached holding a letter written on palm leaf paper, sealed with red wax. "It's from Bara village," he said softly. "It's from her, from Maisha." Zula took the letter, her hand stilling. Slowly, she opened it. "To my son Jabari and to Zula. The days away from you have been long and heavy. In Bara village, I have served the sick, the poor, and the old. Their pain has become my teacher, and their stories have humbled me. I was wrong, deeply wrong, to harm you, Zula. My fear of being alone made me cruel. If I could turn back time, I would walk a different path. But I cannot. I can only pray you both find it in your hearts to forgive me. I wish to return, not to cause pain, but to see the face of my grandchild, if you allow it. I remain, with a heart full of regret. Maisha." Zula read the words again, her heart pulling in two directions, pain and pity. Jabari looked at her, waiting. "She is your mother," Zula said softly. "And perhaps, even a heart full of thorns can grow flowers again." That night, under a full moon, Zula's labor pains began. Jabari stayed by her side, holding her hand, whispering words of love and strength. The village women gathered, lighting lamps and singing ancient songs of birth and courage. The air was alive with hope. After hours of struggle, a loud cry echoed through the hut. A baby boy was born, strong, healthy, with bright eyes that shone like his mother's. They named him Baraka, meaning blessing. Tears filled Jabari's eyes as he held his son. "Our child, the light after the storm." Zula, exhausted but joyful, smiled. "Baraka will know love, not hate. He will grow in peace." Weeks later, a traveler arrived at the village gate. It was Maisha, her face thinner, her eyes softer, her hands rough from work. She carried no pride, only hope and fear. Villagers stared in silence as she walked slowly to Jabari's home. Jabari stood by the door, Baraka in his arms. Zula stood beside him. Maisha bowed low. "I do not ask for a place in your home. Only a moment to see the child and ask your forgiveness." Zula stepped forward. "Maisha, look at him." Maisha raised her eyes and saw Baraka. Tears poured down her face as she knelt. "He is beautiful," she whispered. "Forgive me. I was blind." Zula knelt beside her. "I forgive you, not because I forget, but because I wish peace in our home, for Baraka, for Jabari, for all of us." The villagers watched in awe. A story that had begun in jealousy and pain was turning into one of forgiveness and healing. Maisha was allowed to stay, but she lived in a small hut nearby, not in Jabari's home. She spent her days helping others, learning the ways of humility. Zula visited often, bringing Baraka, sharing meals, and slowly rebuilding trust. Their bond was not the same, but it grew, like a tree after a storm, scarred, yet alive. Time flowed gently in Kendi village, like a quiet stream after a heavy rain. The storms of the past had passed, leaving behind clear skies and new beginnings. Zula, once weak and nearly broken, now walked with pride and peace, her baby boy Baraka wrapped in cloth upon her back. Her laughter returned, echoing through the village, reminding everyone that light always returns after darkness. Jabari, her husband, grew closer to her than ever. He saw not just the wife he loved, but the warrior she had become, a woman who had fought not with anger, but with patience, truth, and strength. Zula's story spread across Kendi and nearby villages. Women came to her for advice, to hear her tale, and to learn from her. "You are no longer just Zula," the village elders said, "you are Zula the strong, a mother of peace and wisdom." They gifted her a special stool made from baobab wood, carved with symbols of strength and love. She was invited to sit among the elders during village meetings, a rare honor for someone so young. Little Baraka grew fast. His eyes sparkled with curiosity, and his laughter warmed the coldest hearts. Wherever he went, people smiled. "This child," they'd say, "was born from fire but carries water in his soul." Maisha, the once proud and bitter woman, now walked slowly and spoke softly. She spent her days weaving mats for the poor, caring for orphans, and visiting the sick. She would often sit outside, watching Baraka play, her eyes filled with both sorrow and joy. One day, Maisha spoke to Zula with a trembling voice. "I cannot undo my mistakes, but I will spend the rest of my days trying to be better, for him, for you, for our family." Zula nodded. "You cannot change the past, Maisha. But together, we can shape a better future." A year passed, and Kendi village held a grand festival, the Festival of Forgiveness. Drums beat loudly, fires lit up the night, and villagers dressed in colors of peace, white and blue. Elder Sefiu stood before the crowd and raised his voice. "This year, we celebrate not only the harvest but also the healing of hearts. Let us remember that love, truth, and forgiveness are stronger than fear." He called Zula forward, placing a beaded necklace around her neck. "This is for your courage. Your story will be told to children so they may learn that the strongest heart is the one that forgives." The crowd clapped, sang, and danced. Zula smiled, holding Jabari's hand, Baraka in her arms. As the festival ended, elders and children sat around fires, and Zula's story was told once more, of how a young woman, wronged by her own mother-in-law, stood for truth and found a path not of revenge but of healing. And as the fire crackled and stars filled the sky, Baraka clapped his tiny hands, unaware of the great story he was part of, a story that would guide his footsteps in the years to come. In the heart of Africa, where rivers sing and trees whisper, the tale of Zula the strong, Jabari the just, and Baraka the blessed lives on. A story of pain turned into peace, of jealousy turned into love, and of a family rebuilt not with fear, but with forgiveness. May their story remind us all that even when the night is long, the dawn will always come.